What is up, my friends? Hey, it is Ryan Coral, and you are listening to the Studio Sherpas podcast. And I'm super excited. I know I say that every single time, and I am super excited every single time. But again, I am super excited. Sure, you're like, what?
I'm just laughing at you at this point. Super excited. You better be.
Today we are with Dr. Sherry Walling, and Sherry helps smart people do hard things. So, I mean, I could just go with that, but there's more to there. I want you guys to hear a little bit more. She works with leaders and entrepreneurs to tackle the common and uncommon challenges that go along with the pursuit of an extraordinary life. So if you want an extraordinary life, you are in the right place right now as you're listening. As a clinical psychologist, she's a speaker, yoga teacher, podcaster, entrepreneur, best-selling author. She's also a mom. You've got 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
Man.
That I know of. You can make that joke as a
awkward.
woman.
I know. I'm like, I don't know
it doesn't
how.
really work.
It sort of clicked like
That's
halfway
a
through
dude
my lap.
joke.
Yeah. She draws from her.
This is going to be amazing.
My gosh. Wow. That's just. Yeah, that's good. You got me there. She draws from her professional expertise and comic relief, as well as her. I can't read. Oh, my eyes.
I've written terrible copy about myself, apparently.
Okay. So she has.
This is my favorite podcast so far ever.
I think I'm getting red. I'm going to take my sweater off. Okay, she's best-selling author. She draws from her professional expertise as well as her personal expertise. Oh, wow. This is just her personal experience. And I'm wrapping up here. I'm almost done. She has helped countless founders and their families work through burnout, conflict, transition stress, and crisis. Goodness gracious, Sherry, we are so happy that you're here, and I'm
you
so
did
sorry.
So well with that. That was so much harder than anyone expected it was going to be.
Oh gosh. So, Sherry,
what's going to happen
Dr. Walling, what is going to happen next? Goodness gracious. So I heard you on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship podcast, and kind of a crazy world. I have a Facebook friend who I totally respect. She's got this cool VA business. She posted like, hey, what's your favorite podcast? Currently, mine is this one. And I'd never heard of it. They only had like 6 episodes at the time. You were episode number 2. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get this lady on the podcast. So you crushed it. I love the work that you are doing. And it's so interesting because this idea of mental health, like, I mean, I didn't really understand the I don't want to say popularity, but like that it's a thing, right? That it's a thing. And that as creatives, as creative entrepreneurs, like that's like, I feel like if anybody struggles in those areas, it's us. So anyway, I love the work that you're doing. Kind of paint a picture of like, what does it actually look like? How did you get to this spot where you're like, I feel like I have a voice and I can speak into these people.
Yeah. So I'm trained as a clinical psychologist. Are you ready to get serious?
Yeah. I am so immature. This is not.
No, I love it. So yeah, I trained as a clinical psychologist. I have a PhD, and I spend a lot of time working with people who have really high intensity jobs. So a lot of my training was with people in the military, first responders, ER docs, people where there was like sometimes really traumatic, terrible things happening in the context of their work. But universally like really high levels of stress.
Mm-hmm.
I am also married to an entrepreneur. My husband, Rob, has started several different software companies and runs a little thing called MicroConf. And, you know, he's like the like really successful one in our family. But
whatever.
The people in our living room have been these like startup folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, over the course of time, heard so many stories about people who were totally burnt out, who were self-medicating with alcohol every night, who were having like major problems in their relationships, you know, just like super amazing, smart, successful people who are really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me feel like, okay, there's a parallel process here with people who are going all in on their businesses and they really love what they're doing and what they're creating, but it's also super hard. And there's not a lot of guidance from really from a mental health perspective about how to walk that road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it started. I gave my first talk on the topic of mental health and entrepreneurship in 2013. Shortly after Aaron Swartz died. He was the founder of Reddit and brilliant young man who ended his own life in his mid-20s. Yeah. So I think that was kind of a catalytic event where I was like, we can't lose anymore, of these amazing entrepreneurial humans. Yeah. And so I wanted to speak to that more formally.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's just interesting. This conversation, I feel like there's a lot of pieces to it. A friend of mine, Graham, had just done a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was picking on Elon Musk, and he was saying how his advice to people, if you're going to start a business, you need to spend pretty much every waking hour on that business. He had a girlfriend at the time, was like, hey, you got to come to the apartment if you want to see me. Bill Gates, he said, I think he's quoted as saying he didn't take a day off or go on vacation in his entire 20s. And I just it's really confusing for an entrepreneur who sees these people as super successful and says okay, I want to somehow be able to achieve even a fraction of that success. So when you see people that are, really unhealthily and extremely gifted, right, in the things that they're doing, but for, I would say, the majority of people, we can't handle that.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about extraordinary outliers. And there are things going on within those specific individuals that make that possible for them and sustainable for them. I don't know Melinda Gates, but I'm totally fascinated about how she's in a relationship with Bill. And that works for them. It's great. But I think when we look at the outliers as examples, that's where we're skewing the data. There are many, many people in the middle of that story who have successful businesses, who take their weekends off and go on a nice vacation with their family every year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more the normative story. And that's a perfectly great way to run a business. And we don't tell enough of those normal stories where it's people have boundaries around their work. It's just not sexy. It's not provocative. It's not interesting. The Elon Musk story is the one where people go, oh my God, that's so interesting. But really, it sounds like a train wreck to me. And I don't really want his life. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I really, really want Elon Musk's life, go for it. Go all in. But realize the collateral damage is most of your relationships and potentially your health. But you can achieve that if you want. It just comes at a cost of other parts of your life, other things.
Yeah. It's I remember, I started this business 16 years ago, and huge Apple fanboy, huge Steve Jobs fan. And there, there are parts of me, I'm like, I love the way that he speaks into the creative world and how he thinks different. All that stuff is so cool. And I want to, those are the parts. And we forget that it's you can't have that without sacrificing something else. And you look at his personal life, it was a train wreck. His own daughter, just terrible relationship with, how can you? Yeah.
And it's, you can trade that. You can trade that. You can say, I want success, period. I want to grow. I want to change the world. I want to be one of those world shifting, conversation shifting humans. If that's what you totally aspire to, be honest about that. Yeah. Please don't have children. That sounds really, don't get married, don't have children, don't make other commitments. Yeah. Go all in on that. And don't tell yourself a lie that you can do everything, because that's what you can't do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Because if you get married, you have to go all in there. It's not it's not 50-50. It's a hundo. That's hard.
Marriage is hard, yes.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to start a business or run a business, and and then be a good dad or good mom or whatever the case. Were you going to say something?
I have lots of things to say about that.
Please do.
Well, it is a little bit of a recipe for like 75% effectiveness in everything, which
Right.
if you're, I'm sure many of your listeners, they're in some ways perfectionists, right? They're craftspeople. They're people who make great video and like get paid for that. And they have an artistic creative side to them. And I think when you diversify yourself, where you're raising children, where you have a significant other, where you're, have another hobby, it means that you are not 100% in any of those things. So you then aim to be the good enough parent, the good enough spouse, the good enough business leader.
Okayest dad ever.
Yeah, pretty good. And nobody likes that, but that's like kind of the honest truth. And it is generally good enough.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite phrases is like, what is it? Done is better than perfect. It's like, it's especially when you get into like video editing, you can actually never finish a piece because there's always something else, a different way. And at some point you got to ship it off. And every minute you spend on that, beyond what you've gotten paid for, you're losing money. And people just don't think like that. They're like, well, I want it to be extraordinary and it just needs to be the best. And, at some point early on, I got over that and I just said, we just got to ship this. And if they hate it, then we'll fix it. But I think this is good enough. And, good enough for who it's for. Just kidding. It's terrible. What's as you look at the work that you've been able to do and the people that you've been able to work with, like what's one of your favorite stories of like, wow, like, I got to work with this person and this is where they're at. And then this is what happened as we started, kind of working through stuff.
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like so many of the ways that I talk about my work, people are like, oh, that's obvious. But I think when you are an entrepreneur, business owner, however you label yourself, and you feel a lot of pressure and you feel pretty alone in that pressure, and then you sit down with someone, whether it's me or a therapist or somebody like me, and they sort of hold up a mirror to you and you see really kind of for the first time, oh my gosh, what I'm doing is really hard. And here's where I'm actually phenomenally successful. And here's some areas I can grow. But I see that aha moment in people all the time where they begin to like respect the work that they're doing. They kind of take a deep breath and they realize, oh yeah, this is a lot. And when we're in the nitty gritty, when we're in the day to day, like we're just responding to the to-do list, to the requests, to the emails, to all of the things that are thrown at us in a given day. And what I love to do in my work is to help people like really back up and get the 10,000 foot view and be able to see like, hey, here's how your life is progressing. Isn't that magnificent? Isn't it a great surprise that you're here doing this instead of where, everybody from high school maybe expected you to be?
Yeah, that's really good. What do you like when you're sitting with somebody? Kind of, do people just come to you and say like, "Hey, I'm really struggling. I need your help." Is that how an engagement might start?
Not usually. Keep in mind, I work with entrepreneurs. Usually, it's one of two things. One is someone will say, "I feel like I'm capable of more, but I'm a little bit stuck, or I have some ambition that I'm not quite able to grasp and I don't know why." So help me find the stuck point and help me optimize, I guess, like help me press into the places that I could be better. And the other thing is someone will say like, my wife or my husband or my partners, like they think I should talk to you. Because far be it, like it's just not really very much part of the ethos of an entrepreneur's mindset to be like, wow, I'm really struggling. I should get some help. I wish that was the story more. I think that's really fair. And most of us need help at some point or another. But I often get it framed more as like, I want to be better. I can optimize this.
Yeah. Figure this part out. What's the one question when you're working with somebody? What's the one question that you get the most emotional response? Like what is the tear jerker question that as people start reflecting on their own life?
The thing that comes to mind is,
just don't ask me about my dad. Don't you dare.
That's exactly what it is, dude.
Stop.
It's exactly what it is, Ryan. It's about your parents. Are they proud of you? Because so many entrepreneurs are misfits, right? Like, if you were like a normal human, you would just go work in corporate America and make a lot of money and have a nice like retirement package. But you're not a normal human. Most entrepreneurs have been outliers, rebels, like did terribly in school despite being intelligent. Almost all of us have some kind of narrative about not fitting. And that's usually in some way, there's some story related to one or both of our parents where they didn't get us. They wanted us to be different. Or they were the one person rooting for us when everyone else in the world thought we were like a dumbass destined for welfare. So I think there's often a lot of emotional reactivity around whether what you've decided to do with your life helps complete the story or the wound of who your parents were.
Yeah. Geez. It's so funny. I had coffee with a mentor friend of mine who I have not had one-on-one time with this guy in forever. And we're having breakfast and we're talking about my business. And he's like, man, this is amazing. He's like, so, how does your dad, and he doesn't actually know me that well, but for me, he's a mentor figure. And I'm like, well, my dad actually passed away 16 years ago. And he's like, oh man, he's like, so asking me about that story and, just kind of pressing in. And I'm just like, oh man. This idea of, man, he'd be so proud of you and just all this stuff. But it is, we tend to operate out of, we're trying to, whatever that hole is or the thing is, and we never get the time. We hardly have enough time to get the work done, to get the tasks done, to, make sure I'm spending time with my spouse or my kids or whatever, to be able to find time to reflect and to think about, what is missing? Like, what is that thing? Right. And it's like in those little quiet moments where somebody asks us a question like that, are your parents proud of you? Like, it's like, oh gosh, it sounds like such a easy, innocent question, but you catch somebody at the right moment where they actually can reflect. So talk about that a little bit. Like how have you seen that, this idea of, I don't know, reflection, meditation, prayer, like whatever you would call it. Has that played a role into the work that you do with the people that you're working with?
Oh yeah. I think it's absolutely central. I mean, I'm also a yoga teacher, so I really, so the yoga aside, like as a scientist, as a psychologist, when we're talking about difficult emotions, we're almost always talking about how to regulate your body. So whether you're angry, afraid, sad, or even joyful, excited, hyper, like one of the fastest, easiest sort of way to think about how to shift or change that emotional state is to think about what's happening in your body. So lots and lots of conversation about deep breathing, lots and lots of conversation about stillness. And again, I think so many of us live these really frenetic existences, right? Where like, I know for me, there's one thing after another, after another, after another. And then there's my email and then I got to drive the carpool and like my days are full. But catching these moments where you can pause and check in, notice how you're feeling, notice where your energy is, breathe. I think those are game changers. They just allow us to be more present. A quiet mind is a wise mind, right? Is a calm mind. So the more that we can show up as really present and not frenetic, the better decisions that we're going to make, the better work we're going to do, the fewer mistakes, the fewer ill thought through comments that we'll make,
Yeah, that's really good. It makes me think of that person that came to you and was like, there's just a box that I need to check off. My, significant other said I should meet with you, and just kind of like whatever. For most of us who can't find the time on our own, if you're listening to this, it's like, if you can't find time to be quiet on your own, to be able to sit down with somebody, a counselor or psychologist, therapist, whatever, and to really kind of force that time to say, like, I'm just going to do it one time and make somebody ask me some questions, to be self-reflective, to just kind of see like what this is like. oh my gosh, I think, for most people, it's really eye-opening because the struggle is real. Like when you're
Yeah.
thinking about, am I going to get paid this week? Am I going to be able to pay my employees? Like, are we going to be able to launch this thing? Like, there's so many things to do. Don't wait until the relationship breaks, or don't wait until these employees quit because they don't feel like you're, giving them the time or listening, or, whatever those things are. And I love that idea of like, regulating your body. And it's not just like doing the things. It's like, oh no, you need to, what are you eating? How much are you sleeping? What are you thinking about? Like,
Absolutely.
all that stuff.
And so much of those kinds of things, as you're alluding to, are preventing problems down the line. Right? If you, as you're starting your business, or really at any point in the life of your business, if you can really protect your sleep, if you can eat reasonably, if you can sort of monitor caffeine and monitor alcohol, just pay attention, be mindful. If you can maintain some kind of movement or exercise routine where you're moving your body pretty vigorously 3 times a week, this isn't like rocket science stuff, but those little things make all the difference in being able to like run a sustainable business in a sustainable way, versus I'm burnt out, I'm fried, I'm making mistakes, I'm pissing people off because I haven't slept well, and now I'm over caffeinating and I'm just like kind of a loose wire all over the place. Those really simple things that we do to take care of ourselves, make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And even something like seeing a therapist or working with a coach is absolutely preventative. Like I don't ever really do therapy anymore. Like I don't give someone a diagnosis. It's very rare, and make a treatment plan and work with someone's depression. I can do that. That's my training, but I'm doing a lot of like, hey, let's sort of noodle around about where the potential problems are and how do we build the resources in those areas before it becomes a really big issue.
Mm-hmm. What's for people listening? I don't know why I say that. It's like this whole show is for the people that are listening. Okay, so
it's all for you guys, you listeners. We hear you.
We hear you. Is there a way to reverse engineer, or for people to think through, like, are there things that I'm doing that are? I was thinking through like this, this work-life balance, and why is it such a struggle? But then also, thinking through like, these are things that we've known about. Everybody knows you should exercise. Everybody knows you shouldn't have more than 2 cups or 1 cup of coffee a day. Well, I don't know what the number is. Maybe not everybody knows that, but people know, like, these things are obvious. For me, my excuse was when we had started having kids, it was like, before kids, Andrea, my wife, was working and I was working, and I could work late, and then she'd want to watch a show, and I'm like, well, let me go export this thing really quick on the computer, and I'd come back, and it's just, and it was fine. I mean, she was annoyed. She's like, why can't you just be here? But I get it. You're starting a business, whatever. But then you have kids, and you have 1 kid, and then you have 2 kids, and then you have 3, and it's like, oh my gosh, like everything needs my attention. So today I'm so healthy today compared to 15 years, 10 years ago. I get up early in the morning. I go to bed at I get sleep. And I'm seeing the effectiveness of like, oh my gosh, like what if I would have done this 10 years ago? This is as important as it is to show up to work the next day, or, to get this, to deliver this email or this proposal or whatever that, but like, I have to get this much sleep. I have to, I've got to fight for these things. So how can the person who's in, my shoes 10 years ago, like maybe it's super hard when you have your little kids and your wife needs a break, and how do you just say like, listen, before you get to the spot where everything's breaking and you're pulling your hair out, how do you get that into somebody's head to just say like, just start small, and you'll start to see the results after a little while?
Yeah, I think one thing is, maybe just do the experiment. Like, set aside 2 weeks where you go to bed by 10, or, whatever it is for you. 10 is not a magic number, but where you really are mindfully taking care of your body and protecting your sleep, protecting what you eat, and see how you feel about your work, see what your mood is like, see how your productivity is. And kind of compare that to a week where you're just like, I'm just going to do what I want and stay up and watch that extra show, or, do whatever. I think that's one of the best practices is like collect the data, see how you feel. And that becomes, I mean, I know what I feel like when I don't work out in the morning. I'm lethargic, I'm grumpy, I'm self-critical. Like I know what that feels like. And that's enough of a motivator for me to like get up at 5:30 and go do my workout so that I know that I can start my day on my terms. But there's nobody that could have told me that, right? I mean, I've heard it before, but you have to try it. You have to experience it for yourself. I think also like small increments of time are more valuable than you think. Like you don't have to like, talking about exercise, like you don't have to join CrossFit and like go all in and drink the Kool-Aid. Like you can do a vigorous walk for 20 minutes with your baby in your arms or whatever it is that just gets your heart rate going. Include your kids if you have little kids. Do the bike ride, do the race, go play Frisbee. It doesn't have to be this sort of formal practice workout thing for you to experience the benefits of just moving around.
Yeah.
Not to mention that kids at any age are going to benefit from being active with you or being with you while you're active if they're in a stroller or whatever. Yeah, so make it easy. Integrate your family, integrate your friends instead of like going to meet somebody at the bar for happy hour. Go on a walk. Just mix it up.
And people like that. Like yesterday I had a friend over and he's been staying with us for a couple of days. And I was like, I got to take the dog for a walk. I'm like, and he's a talker. And I was like, hey, like, do you want to just come on a walk with Ruby, our dog, and I? And he's like, yeah. And so he threw on her shoes. And for me, I know this is a great way for me to kind of clear my mind, get outside. It was sunny actually in Michigan, which is crazy. And we got to talk for 20 minutes. It was easy. I think this idea of like overlapping, like how can I think creatively, bringing your baby with you? It's like, oh, there's a brilliant idea. You get some time with your baby and you get some exercise and you're outside. For me, one of my biggest excuses forever was like, I had a couple of different gym memberships and I literally hated going from my house, especially in the winter, to the gym, doing my thing, then coming home, I just felt like I wasted so much time driving to the gym, like doing all this stuff. So I started like just doing like push-ups and
do a home gym,
at home. And then the other thing is like when I first started, my workout would only take 15 minutes, but I would be done and I'd be like, sweet, I exercised. Check that box. I feel better. And then over time, I'm like, I'm going to add this to my exercise, and it just gets easier, right? But it starts with how can I think creatively about like, is there what's the block? What's the thing that's stopping me from going to the gym? It's like time. I just hate wasting that 20 minutes of drive time. It's like, what could I do?
Yeah, so don't. I mean, in sort of the minimum viable effort to have at least the psychological benefits of movement are 3 sessions of exercise that are 20 minutes where your heart rate is elevated. So again, that you don't have to leave your house to do that.
Yep. How does somebody know, like, can they get to a spot where they feel where I'm thinking like, for somebody who just feels like mentally unhealthy, do people feel that? Do people?
Yes.
Okay. So how can someone start to feel like, oh, this is more healthy? Because I think a lot of us we hear a lot of things. We have social media. So there are a lot of, essentially what I would call lies that we think need to be for us. When does someone start to say like, you know what, that's not true. That maybe that's true for that person, but that's not good or healthy for me.
Yeah, I use social media. I'm on social media, but I really have concerns, and I come from there's a bunch of psychologists who feel this, have concerns about what it feels like to be human right now. That we're kind of always comparing ourselves and our lives to the highlight reel, which is filtered and, Instagram beautiful. And it's in a way that, we are feeling unnecessarily bad about ourselves because it's easy to feel like our lives are less successful, less interesting. We're less attractive than, the people that we, that are our peers that we see on social media. It's different than celebrities, right? It's like people, So man, I think it's really great for everybody to have some screen-free time, whether that's a screen-free Sunday or it's just periods of social media fasting where you just take a break. But really the answer to your question is to cultivate the ability to notice when you're not feeling well, and to know the difference between your version of like a sound, optimistic mind and your version of a like sort of burnt out, pessimistic, grumpy state of being. And everybody's a little bit different on that spectrum, right? But if you pay attention, you know the difference. And if you pay attention, you'll learn which levers to turn, whether you need more time out with your friends, whether you just need some good old fashioned work time,
right,
whether you need to go play Frisbee, whether you know, like it's a cultivated ability to wisely know how to adjust your mental state or your mindset.
Yeah, one of the best practices that I've ever done in my career, and I've talked about this numerous times, but starting in July last year, I started taking Fridays off.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Monday through Thursday, and I've got 2 businesses now. So I don't know if you can see this flag on this podcast. I got 2 businesses. I'm really important.
They're very important.
So to take a day off during the week, people would say like, that is crazy. How you've got a lot of, I do have a lot of responsibilities, but I'm forcing myself to be more focused, during Monday through Thursday. And then here's what's happened is on Friday, I'm not checking emails. I'm not in my to-do list. I'm having coffee. I'm having extended coffee with friends or people that I respect or whatever. Sometimes those are the same thing. I crack myself up. Long lunches, I'll run errands. I've gotten my oil change. I'm doing all of these things that normally I would do on Saturday or Sunday or whatever. But, then there's this like, well, I need to be with the family. I want to be with the family and the kids, and they need time with that. And, but for me to be able to do some of these things on a Friday, well, guess what I think? I'm an entrepreneur. I have 2 businesses. I'm like, I want to start another, but, I've got all these ideas. Well, Friday is the day that I'm actually finally able to work on my business, right?
Yeah.
And the working on our business doesn't mean that I'm checking emails and I'm checking off tasks. I'm actually thinking about how could we do that more efficiently? Or I'm getting my oil change, and the customer service here is amazing. How can we deliver a better customer experience? There's all these things that I don't get to think about Monday through Thursday because I'm in the zone, right?
Yeah.
I know what I have to do this day, but Friday for me is like, I'm not tasking myself with anything that I really have to do today. If I accomplish something, great. I'm definitely wired to like want to accomplish things.
Sure.
But, that practice for me, and I know people aren't going to be like, well, maybe some people could be like, I should take a day off during the week. That'd be amazing. Most people probably are going to think that's crazy. But, yeah, please.
Why is it crazy? It's so interesting to me that, especially as entrepreneurs and especially as creatives, so people who are doing things in film, and you're making shit,
right?
That you expect yourself to work factory hours.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
8 to 4:30, 9 to 5, whatever it is that you're okay. All my good thinking time is going to happen here. That's bullshit. Like for most of us, like our best ideas happen in the shower or when we're like on a walk or when we're waiting for our oil change. Totally Costco. So keep that notebook with you. Let's just like take away this whole idea of work hours and not work hours. Yes, there's got to be some side set of time for this is what I'm editing this,
right.
or this is what I'm emailing or calling people. But like, why do people think in this day and age, especially in the kinds of fields that your listeners are in, that we have to check in and check out 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and that's our work time? It's absolutely asinine.
Yeah.
Go for the lunch, go for the walk, take the day off. You're going to do the thought work on Sunday morning when you're sitting in front of your fire reading the paper anyway. So just give yourself the license to do what you want to do with your days.
Yeah, I've started just one more thing that and this isn't, I'm not trying to brag or anything really. I'm just trying to say like, I'm doing this and it's working for me. So if you are at all inclined to change the format of your workday or your personal days, but I've told the team we do a 9:40 a.m. huddle Monday through Friday, but I'm not here on Friday. So, but it's just a standing meeting. It's 10 minutes or less long. We're just kind of talking about how everybody's doing. What's the one big project that you got for the day? Do you need anything from anybody? That's it. People are done. So then right after that, I told Tyler, our operations guy, I'm like, hey, sometimes I'm running in late to work, so I'm barely making it in time for this meeting. And I really want to make sure that I've got really good focus for the day and that I have enough time to fill out my little journal thing that says like, here's what I want to accomplish today. Here's the kind of person I want to be. So don't schedule anything for me until starting at 10:30. So after this huddle, which is like 9:50. So I have 40 minutes in the morning that I'm just like thinking about what's most important today, what I need to do, like these things. In that practice, it's just making me way more intentional, way more rather than responding to all of the emails and the voicemails and all of that stuff to dictate what I'm going to do this day. I'm saying like, what is big step? Like, what are my goals for this week or for this month or the quarter? And like, what can I do today to help turn the needle? Can you just take what I said and turn it into something that might be helpful for everybody?
Be thought focused rather than task focused.
I knew you could do it.
Maybe thought focused isn't exactly right, but prioritize your mind, the well-being of your mind over crossing things off the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you feel like is like for somebody that's struggling or just feeling like, man, I am losing it?
Yeah.
Like if there's just one thing that somebody could do, that's not going to cost a lot of money or take a ton of time, but real practically speaking, like what is one thing?
Go play. Go play more. We really have made a big error in assuming that more work is better work.
Yeah.
And most people do better with less work that's more focused, with a mind that's better rested and better activated. So when I talk about play, I mean like go move your body, go craft something, go do woodworking, go do ceramics, go like do something that's super different than your job. And that is a tremendously valuable investment in your ability to function well at work.
I love that. I just started a new book. It's like the 4 Habits for a Joy-Filled Marriage. And there's this whole brain science study that they've done where it says, oh man, I'm going to forget his name, a scientist from a long time ago that said, humans need these 2 things. Totally forget what they are. But scientists are smarter today or have more information to make.
We can look at brains now.
Yes. And they say like when you create room for joy and play, right? That is the thing that brings fulfillment to us. That is the biggest need that we have as human beings. And it's like, wow. I think in the past I've been like, yeah, that sounds. I'm like, I think that's actually accurate.
Isn't it profound?
Yeah.
Like what if you started each day and you thought, I'm going to let joy guide my priorities today? Like, how would you organize your days and how is that different than what you do? I know for me, I love my work. I have a deep amount of joy and satisfaction in the work that I do. And so it doesn't change it deeply. It's not like I'm like, I'd quit and go do something else. Like I wouldn't.
Like that voice.
I could, but I'm not going, I wouldn't. It's not what I would choose. But I do create more space in my week and my life to do other things. I do work fewer hours. I do shift things around a little bit based on joy. Yeah. And I think it creates a more satisfying life. And I'll also argue a better business.
Yeah.
A healthier business.
I agree. What would you say is the one practice, and maybe you've already said it, was the one practice that you do that has really brought the most profound impact, and maybe for your marriage and your family?
Yeah. I don't know if my husband would agree with this, but maybe this isn't what you're asking. But I train in the circus. So
You train or you trained?
both.
Okay.
I'm an aerialist. So I both teach and then spend a lot of time practicing and perform. So I have this whole other part of life
Oh my gosh.
that brings me a ton of joy.
Yeah.
It's really different than my day job. My husband likes it because I've got a 6-pack and he thinks that's hot. So, and then I have this part of life that like is mine, and I'm not, I don't have to answer to anybody else in the same way that I do as a professional psychologist or as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very playful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think sort of that theme is really around that. What brings you joy if you're in a spot where you're just, and I've had so many conversations with filmmakers, business owners that are like, I don't have time to breathe right now. And I'm super cash strapped. So there's this stress around, I've just got to keep grinding. I've got to keep hustling. I've just got to keep at it. And there's a part of me that wants to say, well, yeah, like if you can deliver that project sooner, you'll get paid for it sooner. So there is that part of it. But then there's the other part that's like, are you working smart versus hard?
And are you charging enough?
Right. Yeah. And that's like the one part where it's like, what would happen if you got a 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep tonight and then tried to finish whatever that thing is tomorrow? We don't, it's hard to measure. It's hard to just say like, oh yeah, you'll probably operate better. No, it's like, I think science says that you will.
Yeah. There's a book called Deep Work. Have you come across this book? It's by Cal Newport.
Sounds familiar, but no.
And he really outlines the science of deep focused work, which is really different than the work that most of us do, right? Work where we set aside several hours and there's no notifications, there's no distractions, there's no just checking. I'm going to go check my email real quick just to see about the one thing. Like we're just all in on the project that we're doing. Yeah. And the productivity difference is really significant. And we can even look neurologically at what it costs us to shift. You see this sort of neurological activation that continues to be activated even after we've gone back to the primary task. So say we're editing and then we think, oh, I need to go like check my email real quick. And then we go back. Like basically we've lost 20 minutes, even though we think we've only lost 30 seconds. So the science is really compelling about deep focus when you're working. What, kind of comes back to the old, like, wherever you are, be there. Whatever you're doing, do that.
Yeah.
Be all in on that. And don't try to tell yourself the lie that you can sort of work longer and that will make you more productive, or do 18 things at once and that just is a sign of success. Like, no, just do the thing you're doing. Be done. Go to sleep. Get up. Do it again.
Yeah, that's my last piece of advice is all of those things, what you just said, and what I've done with those things that you just said is I write them down. You're right. Yeah. I've got like a morning thing. I'm using the high performance planner, Michael Hyatt. I don't know if that even, So, and then last year I did the high performance planner, Brennan Burchard, like capturing those things of like, what's the most important thing? As soon as I started doing that, I stopped checking my email as much. I stopped just like feeling like I had to do all of these tasks and just prioritized and was like, hey, if I don't get to cleaning out my inbox or get to inbox 0 today, it doesn't matter because I got the 2 things that were the most important, or the 3, or the one thing that was the most important thing. So that's my advice.
You got it done. And then your brain's like, woohoo, we got it done. Your brain's having a little party.
And if people get mad because I'm not emailing back or whatever, it's like, I'm sorry. It just wasn't my top priority today.
And you know what? I've seen increasingly people put a little thing in their email signature just to be like, hey, I'm on like a 24-hour email cycle. Like you'll hear from me within 48 hours, but it's not an emergency.
Right. Yeah. Sherry, I'm sad that we have to be done, but I wonder if there's any parting words that you have for our peeps.
I guess it's more of a repeat of what we said, but I feel like this freedom, giving yourself permission to live a joyful life, is really, really profound. And if that can really land for someone, I think it's a game changer.
That's really good. How can people follow you, find you? I know you've got books, you've got your podcast. How can they keep up with what you?
I have a little book called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your Shit Together, which my son named. I blame my husband for the language.
How old is he?
Well, he's 13 now. He was like 10 when he named the book. We're like, you're not supposed to say that. Also, really good title. Thanks. We're going to take it. So that is on Amazon and on Audible, all the places. Mm-hmm. And then I have a podcast called Zen Founder, as in calm founder. And that is, of course, freely available where all podcasts can be found on iTunes and Spotify and all the things. And then I'm at zenfounder.com and sherrywalling.com if people want to hit me up for something more specific than the book or the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I apologize for what happened earlier. I don't know who that was. That was
I'm so proud of you for getting through my bio. You did so good with that.
Oh man. Wow. That's a story to remember right there. But hey, I love the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you so much for the impact that you're having on so many people in deep and profound ways. I feel like it's an honor for us to have you on the show and for you to be speaking to us about these things. So thank you. Keep up the great work, and I appreciate you tons.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Ryan.